Hi, Lee Thurburn here, and I want to say howdy and welcome back to another episode in our journey and conversation regarding value chain and business strategy and how to make your business more successful and grow faster. Today, we're going to be talking about value chain. This is the second in a series of three conversations that I've got scheduled to just talk about value chain. And on screen here next to me, I have a slide. Now, normally I try to do the presentation with a series of little overlays, and because I really hate the idea of overwhelming people with PowerPoints. When I teach class at UT Arlington, there's some classes where the course of the semester will have over 900 PowerPoint slides. And I tell the students right up front, it's death by PowerPoint. I am going to do this a little different than I do with my students. I am going to try to make it a little bit more graphically entertaining and not be quite so dependent on things like bullet points and huge amounts of text, but to convey some of the concepts that I want to convey about value chain analysis. It is going to be necessary for me to use some slides. Now, before I get started too much, I would like to invite you to be sure and go to livestreamlee.com and click on the Join My Community button there. Now, what happens when you do that is you join the Livestream community, but you also get an account on a powerful digital marketing tool called Apricot Rocket. And this is the underlying technology that I've developed over the last several years. And the whole purpose of Apricot Rocket is to try to help small businesses become more efficient and effective at finding and converting potential customers into customers. So you get a whole suite of digital marketing tools, but also, and very importantly, you get access to information like I'm going to be sharing today so that you can review it at your leisure, and also other documents that I use and help to show the concepts that I am talking about as I have the various sessions, the various daily broadcasts. So go to livestreamlee.com and click on the Join My Community. The account's free, and you get a bunch of wonderful technology along with it. Also, just so you'll know, we meet every day of the week, Monday through Friday at 3 o'clock from 3 to 3:30 here on LinkedIn Live. So please be sure and come back and join us tomorrow. Now, I want to stop and just put a little shout out to a friend of mine, Carlos Cantu. It's no surprise we live in a very litigious society, and the threat of lawsuits for you as a business person are very, very real. As an entrepreneur, not only do you have to think about providing great quality services and products, but you also have to worry about what happens if something goes wrong. In fact, what you really need to worry about is the stuff that you don't know about, the stuff that falls into the you don't know what you don't know category. Most people only think of commercial liability, property, and auto coverage when they think about risk management. But as business owners, we also need to think about things like professional liability insurance, directors and officers insurance, umbrella policies, and stuff like that, which can be quite confusing. The real risk is that you think you're covered for something, and then at the wrong time, you find out that you're not. I call Carlos Cantu when I run into something that I'm not sure about. Carlos is a commercial risk specialist with TWFG Insurance. You're not going to find anyone who understands commercial risk management better than Carlos Cantu. Carlos is a great guy, and if you go to livestreamlee.com, you're going to see a button there that has Carlos Cantu, commercial risk management, commercial insurance. Give Carlos a call, click on that button and get to know Carlos, and he will be able to help you when one of those things that you don't know about happens and pops up and bites you and threatens your company. All right. What I've got on screen right here is a simple supply chain diagram. And this diagram shows you the basically the supply chain, a value chain, is really just the combination of the people that supply products to you, what you do to add value to those products, and then the people you sell those products to, call them your customers. Now, sometimes you're selling an end product to the consumer that actually is going to get the direct personal benefit out of that. But sometimes you're just another cog in the chain. You're just another piece of the value chain for that end customer. And so maybe your customer could be a distributor or another manufacturer or somebody that's using your product in yet another value added process. So while this is a great simplified value chain, I want to bring some language in, which is important for you to have in your mind. And so I've segmented it out in the traditional 5-step value chain model approach. Now, what we're talking about here are what are called primary activities. There's also beyond this a lot of support activities, which we'll talk about just a little bit, but we really went into those in more detail in last week's talk. So if you go back to last week's talk and look at it, you'll get a better perspective of the supporting activities. But the primary activities really typically relate to bringing the products that you're going to convert or add value to in. So those are inbound logistics. And then you have operations of some sort. The operations might be some sort of manufacturing, could be that you're doing warehousing. It could be that you're a distributor, in which case the value that you add, your operations, is a distribution element. You could be a retailer where you do retail things. But in any event, you have operations that you perform to add value, and then you have outbound logistics. Outbound logistics are the steps that you go through to get your product into the hands of the customer that you're doing business with. Now, all businesses have as a primary function the marketing effort that they have to engage in to get the client or clients that they have. And all businesses have some level of service and or support services that they provide after the fact. And these are always these are always primary activities. But the three most important steps in the traditional concept of the value chain are the inbound logistics, the operations, and the outbound logistics. So as we further look at this and kind of expand the value chain out, this is what a value chain would look like in a slightly more complex scenario. You have your business pretty much right in the center. And then downstream to, if you're looking at the screen to the left, you have the inbound logistics activities. These are typically considered downstream operations or backward integration. If you were to step back and do some of these things, that would be considered backward integrations. These are behind you in the value chain creation process. If you are maybe making a product of some sort, you might have factories that create products that are used in the manufacturing process that you have. So those factories will ship typically to some intermediate person, some intermediary. Could be a warehouse, it could be a supplier, just some collection point along the value chain process, and they in turn will ship to your business. And then of course you're going to have to do marketing get customers, and then you're going to take care of getting the products to the customers. A slightly more detailed look at a value chain as we again sort of stretch this out a little bit more to look at a little bit deeper level of detail. In a realistic manufacturing or retailing process, you're going to have, again, your business in the middle. And then going back to as far back in the chain as you can, you'll typically have somewhere a manufacturer that takes a raw material, typically something out of the earth, and then does something to that raw material. And then as they as they send it forward in the value chain before it gets to you, they'll have some shipping costs. They may send it to yet another factory who will also do additional manufacturing on it. And then there will be some distribution where they'll ship it to either yet another manufacturer, a factory where some more value is added, or maybe to another distribution node, a supplier, who will then in turn ship it to your business. And then, of course, you'll add the value that you have. Now, I'm not going to draw the value chain out any further than this, but it's important to note that you may have a separate and similar value chain for a number of the different products that you incorporate into your business, or that you manufacture, or that you retail, or whatever it is that you do. And so you may have 10, 20, 30, 50, or several hundred, or even several thousand factories back on the far end of this that flow product forward to you. So depending again on what it is that you sell and what value you add, you can have a very complex value chain. So, and then on the forward side, you also have the elements of again, marketing. And if you're involved in shipping, you may have some shipping costs that you incur. Now, of course, these costs, all of these costs along the value chain, in some way, shape, or form, get added together. And the ultimate consumer of the end product is the one that pays for all of the value that's been added in all of the steps along the value chain. Now, these are not rocket science ideas. I'm not sharing something that you're not already at least aware of if you don't actively think about it. But ultimately, whatever price you pay for a product that you consume, and I don't mean like an apple or an orange, but you consume a car by driving it and using it. So all of the things that you consume and use have many, many, many different value chain sort of nodes or points along the value chain process. So I thought it would be interesting, and I'm gonna strip out all the dollar signs here, and we're just gonna call this, and this is really what we just looked at, the typical retail value chain. And the reason I'm focusing on the retail idea is because there's some interesting things that we can do with the concept of the retail value chain. But before I do that, I just want to say, the whole idea behind studying value chains is really very simple. Value is wealth, and value is added, and wealth is created in the value chain for the products and services that you offer. Now, if you're a small business with a limited number of employees and maybe even a solopreneur, this isn't a conversation that you're going to be terribly concerned about, because quite honestly, you're probably not dealing with a complex value chain. However, if you have a company where you are selling products, if you have more than, say, 20, 30 or more employees, you have a value chain of some significance. And the larger your business, the more significant your value chain is. Now, as entrepreneurs, we have really two fundamental charges that we have to be constantly aware of and try to improve on. One is efficiency and the other is effectiveness. Efficiency is doing a job in the most efficient manner, stripping out the maximum number of costs so that we can have the lowest cost and have the highest possible margin. That's important. And that's a large part of what's involved in value chain analysis and the reasons we do it. But there's also effectiveness. And effectiveness basically means doing the right job, not doing the job right. Efficiency is doing the job right. Effectiveness is doing the right job. And so as entrepreneurs, as we start to get a larger business, we start to be more concerned about the value chain. And I'm going to give you some examples of people that created incredible wealth that focused their attention on value chain analysis. And there's two really powerful examples that we can look at. And even though they're in the retailing business, they represent the two dominant names in the retail business and the two dominant value chain value extraction strategies that have been successfully employed. And they have a couple of the most valuable businesses in the world. The first are the Waltons, and the second is Jeff Bezos. Now, Sam Walton on the left and his brother Jim, or Bud Walton, they got started back in the 50s. And it's famous. They started in Bentonville, Arkansas. And basically what they did is focus on buying in bigger volume to get deeper discounts and then passing those discounts along to their clients. So value chain for them started with simply buying in bulk and passing the bulk savings along to their customers. Amazon is a little different story. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually kind of explode the Walmart value chain and talk about what they've done. And then we're going to look at the Amazon value chain and what they've done. And I'm going to share a couple of interesting sort of tidbits of information about these two that I think are kind of illustrative. So first of all, let's look at what Sam Walton and his brother Jim Walton did. So what I've done is I've kind of taken the value chain that exists in the traditional, typical retail environment, and I've shown you what effectively Sam and Walmart did. Some of this was done while they were still around. Some of it was done kind of after they came along. But the wheels were put into motion with Sam and Jim. And basically what Sam and Jim did with Walmart is they eliminated several steps in the backward integration or the backward portion of the supply chain. They developed the ability early on for the vendors that they do business with to actually send product directly to Walmart or Walmart distribution centers. Now, it's much more complex than just simply sending product directly to Walmart, because fairly quickly in the history of Walmart, the Walton brothers were able, the Walton family was able to get multiple locations. As they began to grow multiple locations to further increase their volume buying power and get better prices, they then ended up having to get distribution warehouses. I'm sure it started with a central warehouse initially, and then it just grew out. It grew out from there. But generally speaking, the factory, whoever makes the product, will send the product directly to either a distribution point or a transfer point. Now, when I say a distribution point or a transfer point, a lot of the value that the Walmart organization has created in stripping out distributors and suppliers. Distributors and suppliers are the collection points along the inbound logistics side of the chain. They're the collection points where manufacturers send bulk goods, and then the bulk goods are repackaged into shipments that go out to either additional supply points or directly to the retailer that they're sending to. Well, Walmart began building their own distribution and collection points, but they did something really innovative, which is called cross-docking. And cross-docking is where you take products off of an inbound truck, and instead of warehousing them so that you can then repackage them, they would have, and you've seen these things probably out near the old Texas Stadium area. There's a lot of big logistics ports out there where they'll have a long dock going way down, and you'll have trucks backed up at one side and trucks backed up at another side, and then a relatively narrow dock between the two trucks. I'm going to tell you what's going on there. It's called cross-docking, where a truck bringing product from one distribution point, often a manufacturer, brings the truck in and backs it up. And then the truck that's going out, there might be 5 or 6 or 10 of them on the other side of the dock. And so a forklift will come in and get a pallet and load it into each truck as it goes down the dock and cross-dock the inbound freight. And then that truck will pull out and another one will pull in with some other product, and they'll cross-dock that product. Cross-docking is an incredibly efficient way of being able to avoid warehousing costs. Now, you think of a warehouse as a big building where you put in maybe some shelves and some forklifts, and that's it. Well, yeah, that is it. And, from a value add perspective, the buildings are fairly inexpensive. I mean, they're not 40-story tower office buildings, so their construction cost is way less. But they still have tremendous cost, and as goods set there, they absorb some of those overhead costs, and those absorbed costs have to be passed along to the next point on the value chain. And so if you can avoid having to store product for any length of time, and you can cross dock from one side of your dock to another by offloading one truck and unloading directly to the trucks that are going out, you accomplish the repackaging, and you accomplish the distribution, and you avoid the cost of having to have a much more expensive warehouse with all the warehousing equipment and supplies that you would have in a warehouse. So you avoid all those costs. Well, Walmart figured out how to do that early on. Walmart was probably, well, let me rephrase that. Walmart was the first major retailer to incorporate back in the 70s computers and barcodes and scanners into their retail and their warehousing processes. Walmart built massive product value chain tracking and distribution software to allow them to know what inbound trucks had what products on them, to be able to bring them into a dock, unload them, and cross-dock the freight before and then have them go out. This requires a tremendous amount of integration with your supply chain to make sure that you're getting those trucks in at the right time so they can be loaded in the right way. It's a lot of work, and it's a very complex process, but by figuring out how to automate those processes, you're able to tremendously eliminate some of the value add stages in your inbound logistics supply chain. So that's what Walmart effectively did, which means they stripped out that's the stuff that you see lowered. Now, they also are able to deliver directly to customers. So generally speaking, Walmart does marketing on the front side. Now we're talking about the front side of the value chain. Walmart does marketing to get customers in. Now Walmart, it depends on kind of what you tune into, but Walmart does a lot of marketing. And they do that consistently, which is one of the reasons they have the big brand that they have. But they get customers to come to the store and carry the goods out. So they don't really have a complex outbound logistics. They do have and have been developing an e-commerce capability largely in competition with Amazon, which we're going to talk about next. So there is some limited amount of outbound logistics that Walmart has to deal with in the way of e-commerce related sales, which typically is done on either FedEx or UPS, though I'm sure there are others as well. Now, one of the things that Walmart also does, and they're famous for doing this, is they squeeze their suppliers. They squeeze their suppliers in a number of ways, one of which is to constantly negotiate for ever better prices and ever better just-in-time delivery so that warehousing and distribution costs can be minimized and made as efficient as possible. But they also are known for, as they increase their volume with suppliers, with the vendors that sell to them, they'll push for ever longer payment terms. It'll often start off in the 30 to 60-day range, but it usually ends up, as you grow your relationship with Walmart, one of the requirements is that you end up loaning Walmart your products for anywhere between 60 and 90 days. So your payment terms gradually get pushed out, which of course effectively means that the vendors are in large part paying for or financing the inventory carrying costs that Walmart has. So while Walmart has built this efficient distribution network and logistics supply chain, they've also managed to be innovative in terms of how they pay for a lot of their inventory by getting vendors to give long-term, I say long-term is the wrong word, but longer terms for the financing and the payment of the products that are bought. So this is effectively how Walmart has become the dominant bricks and mortar retailer in the world. Now, Walmart started back, I think it was 1958. So they've been in business, a long time, right? 62 or 3 or 4 years. And they are the dominant bricks and mortar retailer, and they are the dominant retailer in the world in terms of dollars. They actually have sold about 500, and I think the number is $590 billion last year of retail goods. That's more than Amazon. Amazon was in the high 300s, I think 380 or $90 billion. Walmart was 560, Walmart was about 380. Now, if you take Amazon Web Services out of Amazon Web Services out of the Amazon number, Amazon actually had about 340 billion, Walmart about 560 billion. So Walmart is by far the largest retailer. But Amazon's done something different from Walmart. About 80% of Amazon goods actually come from relatively small businesses, and they use the fulfillment by Amazon methodology. And basically, Amazon is a huge inventory management and logistics system. When I say logistics system, Amazon has over 100 warehouses where they distribution nodes where they carry inventory so they can ship from the closest possible shipping point to the end consumer for the fastest possible delivery. They're not only moving towards next day delivery, but in many, many cases now they're able to do same day delivery. How, you ask, do they do that? Well, they do that quite simply. First, let me just say, on the supply side, Amazon has very little costs. Amazon doesn't buy inventory. Amazon warehouses and distributes your inventory for you. So whether you're an individual selling a book, or whether you're a vendor that manufactures product and uses Amazon as your distribution, your retailing point, you're going to pay for the cost of all of the products that you have to get them to Amazon, and they're going to sit on Amazon's shelves for sale and delivery, where you're picking up and covering the inventory costs. So Amazon has little or no inventory costs. Amazon has marketing costs, but the inventory costs are carried by the sellers. Now, Amazon spends money on marketing, but what Amazon has done is they have actually almost eliminated, well, I'll say this, they've eliminated about 50% of the vendors in the shipping to the customers. So Amazon used to use about 60% of their shipping was on FedEx and UPS. That's now down to about 20%, and close to 40% of their shipping cost, the switchover has pretty much been moved off of FedEx and UPS and onto Amazon's own fleet. They have a fleet of aircraft and they have a fleet of trucks. Now, I think the actual percentage is 25% of the outbound logistics is handled by Amazon's own fleet of vehicles. They have dramatically reduced their reliance on FedEx and UPS to deliver. Now, they have actually slightly increased their reliance on the United States Postal System, but that's probably primarily because for non-urgent deliveries, that's the least expensive way to get non-urgent deliveries out, as well as to some rural locations that Amazon can't conveniently deliver to. But Amazon has, again, no inbound logistics costs and no inventory carrying costs. Walmart compensates for that by putting the burden of the inventory carrying costs on their suppliers. And Walmart has accomplished that by putting it on their suppliers. Amazon makes the suppliers send the inventory to them. Now, if the inventory doesn't turn in a pretty short time frame, Amazon will actually charge you. I've kind of run out of time, and you may already know a lot of this, but stripping out value from the value chain is one of the most time-proven and effective ways of being able to establish a long-term, sustainable, and significant competitive advantage. I hope this has helped you see how both Amazon and Walmart have accomplished effectively the same goal, albeit through slightly different mechanisms within the value chain analysis and re-engineering, but both of them have accomplished effectively the same thing. We're going to have yet one more conversation about a company named FreshDirect that has applied a combination of the value of the Amazon and Walmart logistical model, and we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into how they have done it. I hope you've enjoyed this value chain discussion, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow at 3 o'clock, where we're going to have another conversation on how to grow your business more quickly, as well as, again, on Thursday, where we're going to have our concluding conversation on value chain analysis. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow at 3. Bye.